Jillian, I'm still not seeing the go live.
It just says preparing to live stream the meeting, but then it won't.
Okay.
Unable to live stream to the custom service. Let me try one more time. I have an idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's working now.
Yep, it is.
Yeah. Why? Again.
Can everybody see the public comments?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Sorry, were you guys all waiting for me?
Nope, we just got back.
Okay, Diane, do you need re-credentialing of who's here for roll call for your notes?
Sorry about that. I don't need another recall unless Heidi is joined.
Okay. Well, let's put a call out. Heidi Torian, are you on the meeting? Not hearing Heidi. So we have the same members present as before. So let me pick up where I left off in these public comments. And to clarify, Greg, we are able to live stream now?
Correct.
Okay,
We are
thank
live
you.
streaming.
Thank you very much for the work on the technical end to both you and Jillian. So,
Well, we appreciate your patience on that. Thank you.
okay, so I'm going to pick off where I left off. In addition to educating our children, school staff are also nurses and therapists. Myself and AIAs are trained in diabetes intervention, seizure intervention, sensory disorders, among other conditions. We also handle kids who are tempted to suicide or traumatized at home, working through sexuality, anger management, and more. As a SPED case manager, I'm responsible for legal documents that follow federal and state guidelines. Annually, each SPED student generates mandatory documents that are between 15 and 50 pages in length. It takes me between 4 and 10 hours of paperwork time per student and an additional 1 to 3 hours to present this information to parents. But I do not have this time in my schedule. I am given up one prep period, 45 minutes for middle school, for this paperwork and creating lessons for 3 to 5 different courses before or after student hours can be used if there are not meetings or crisis debriefs. So my reality is that my professional goal was to leave before 5 p.m. each night this year. I have a long way to go to this goal. My contract is 7 to 3:30 p.m. My last thought to share is growing concern in the world of SPED, and especially here at North Marion, about disappearing classified support staff. When I started here 6 years ago, we had just enough staff to meet the needs of our specialty students and about 10 substitutes. Now we have been chronically and dangerously short all year and no backup when someone is out. This becomes a systemic issue because we are unavailable to support general education classes that our students attend, leaving classroom teachers in the lurch. It becomes a potentially expensive problem for the district because we case managers do not have time to complete our legal paperwork as thoroughly as we should, opening the district up to large fines with the state. And it is a safety hazard if medical needs are not being monitored due to enough staff. A way that could improve this is to understand and appreciate what we do and pay competitive wages. Right now, businesses using unskilled workers or teenagers make more than we do taking care of all of this vulnerable population of students. I'm very lucky that my room support staff are so dedicated. They make my job doable. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Adriana Bauer. I'd like to acknowledge and appreciate her sending those public comments to us, and just reiterate that I appreciate public comments. The board appreciate public comments. I would encourage you to continue to reach out. I know these are very, very tough.
Hey Glenn, it's still
times.
not showing. I have it up on my phone and it's not working. I feel really uncomfortable that we're having a public meeting without the public being able to attend. Like, to the point I feel like we're not having a public meeting if they're not allowed to attend.
Are you saying it's not on the public, the live stream isn't working?
It's
No,
working for
there's
me.
There's
I see
16 in the waiting room.
What waiting room?
If you go to YouTube and select on our channel,
Okay, thank you.
there's 16 in the waiting room.
Sorry, flower.
Do we have a clarification on that?
I am not familiar with needing.
Yes, I
any-
just had 3 text messages from parents saying they cannot connect still, and I can still see them on the browser saying that it's not live.
I'm wondering if the wrong URL was shared because it's streaming right now and we've never had to admit anyone to watch the stream. That's completely public.
I'm just saying I can't access it from my phone either. And I'm a subscriber.
Okay, well, let me try and figure out what's going on because it's streaming and you don't need to be admitted. So it's confusing to me.
Yeah,
I'm
that
sorry.
doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I think I'm going to proceed because if we have, as long as we're creating a digital copy of this that can be viewed, it may not be in live time, but honestly, that is some of the
Glenn,
difficulties.
how can we have a public meeting if the public can't attend? There is no public here. Why cannot we release the Zoom and allow the parents to connect via Zoom? If they speak up, then we kick them out. But you should be able to at least attend the meeting, especially given the events from today. That is unfair to the public, the community, and especially to the parents. We should release the Zoom meeting.
Well, I'm not prepared to do that because of I'm just not prepared to go there. Sorry. You can disagree with that, but unless you're having a motion to delay this meeting.
I make a motion, we delay the meeting due to it's not public. Public meeting law. The public are not able to attend this meeting.
Do I hear a second? Hearing a second, the motion, hearing no second, the motion dies. Moving along to our next item for business. Board communication. I'm going to deviate slightly from this just in the interest of time because we have wasted a lot of time on this. Just make note of School Board Appreciation Month happening this month. Jillian has reached out to you via email. I would appreciate you that you guys respond to her. And again, I would just reiterate that I know this job is thankless at times, but your continued engagement and willingness to serve does not go unnoticed, even in these really tough times. So this is the month to honor that service and really appreciate that. So we have dispensed, or we've postponed the student report at this point. We need to acknowledge an overnight field trip for the high school wrestling, the Oregon Classic, January 13th through 15th of 2022. Just to acknowledge that for you, I'm going to dispense with some of the OSBA updates in the interest of time. And I would like to get to Christy with an update on our Equity Through Policy Committee.
Yeah, hi, can you share the slide or? Sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Hi, can you hear me? Okay. Can we share those slides again, or do I need to do that for my computer? I just see the public comments open right now on the agenda.
It appears
Hey,
that
Greg.
the email that was sent out with the live stream URL has the incorrect URL, and that's why nobody can get in.
Ooh. Are we talking for staff or what's on the website?
I haven't looked at the website. I've looked at the streaming URL for staff, the email that went out to staff.
It was corrected.
I
Let me
didn't
take a
mean
look.
to hijack the meeting again, but I just wanted to let everyone know what's going on, that I think folks were given the wrong URL, and that would explain why they can't get to the meeting. It is streaming, and it is also recording the meeting.
The website has, in fact, I tested it, the correct URL. So anybody in the public has the correct URL. I sent an email out to staff and then resent it with the correct URL last Friday.
So I just received the link from Jillian, opened it up on my same browser on my Microsoft computer, and it says it is restricted and there is no access.
I don't know how to explain that. We didn't put any controls on it.
If what is on the website is up and live and is streaming, we have to move forward. We can't just continue to belabor. So Greg, is there?
But that's the thing, Glenn, it's not live. It says restricted. Everybody, I have gotten tons of text messages. It says restricted. They're on YouTube with all the information. I went on 2 different systems. It says restricted. You can't carry on an open meeting to the public, open meeting laws, when they're not allowed to attend. You know that. We're gonna have to postpone it.
I know that we have to provide an accurate depiction of what's going on at this meeting. There's
Yes.
there's a recording happening.
Yes.
Honestly, what we don't need the public input for the meeting to continue. We, as representatives of the public, make those decisions and represent the public in our meetings and in our duties here.
Then open the Zoom so that they can at least watch. You have somebody controlling the Zoom.
So Greg, can you bring up Christie's stuff? Are you in charge of sharing screen right now?
Yes, I am. What would you like me to bring up?
I'll let you chime in, Christy.
Sure. Yeah. If you go down to, keep going a little bit further, the Part E, Equity Update, January 2022 PDF, please. Oh, nope. I think that was the wrong one. Yeah. The one right below that, please. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to provide an update on what our equity subcommittee has been up to over the last maybe about 10 months or so. And I guess I can't scroll through this. Can you hit the next slide for me? Oh, great. So we've met over the course of this past year to begin to describe the work ahead. Mostly our ideas were to sort of come together on what we needs to be done and try to set a coursework for ahead. Of course, like everything this past year, many of the meetings have been less regular than desired due to workloads and COVID restrictions. But we have 3 areas that we'd like to share tonight. A little bit of background on Oregon's policy requirements, review of some surrounding district examples, and then bullet point 3 is missing a D, apologies for that, developing some refined metrics for equity. You can hit the next slide, please. So Oregon has lots, equity mentioned in lots of different policies throughout school board policies. Here are just a few of more recent ones. Every student belongs, and here's some links. Mostly my goal with this presentation was to sort of give you some resources close at your fingertips so that you could go and read a little bit more deeply and start to think about how this might impact our district as we move forward. And so here are a couple of different House bills and AORs for that every student belongs, and we've reviewed those in our policy at North Marion. And then the next one, Senate Bill 732. Thank you. Equity Committee Senate Bill 732. Here's a link to it here. If you haven't looked at it yet, it's a good thing to go and read. There are some action items that we need to take within the district. If we hit the next couple of slides, we'll talk through some of the highlights of that bill. Equity Advisory Committee formation, we need to address that and in our district. This advisory committee will be truly advisory in nature, or should be truly advisory in nature. There are some requirements to establish it by September 15th of this year. There are some districts around us that have one established, but we have not really good information on how they're functioning or what their roles are. Again, with all of the extra layers of COVID precautions that we've needed over the year, it's been hard to get into what are these advisory committees actually functioning as and making impact. So this new advisory committee, specifically in this Senate bill, does say it must include parents, employees, students, and community members, primarily representative underserved student groups. And so we'll need to look at our student population and see how we can have our advisory committee reflect that student population, and then begin to highlight some members of the community and others that will eventually serve on this advisory committee for us. So we need to adopt some policy to form this committee no later than the middle of September of this year. I'm ready for the next slide, please. So here are some highlights of what this bill does talk about as far as what we must include. The idea is that this advisory committee would advise the school board about the educational equity impacts of policy decisions, and advise the superintendent about those. Ginger, you might want to mute yourself. There we go.
Thank you.
Yep. So advising the school district and the superintendent about how equity impacts of policy decisions, informing the school district board and superintendent when a situation arises in a school that negatively impacts underrepresented students, and advising the board and superintendent on how best to handle the situation. So it could, this advisory committee could serve as a good reference point for decisions at the school board and administrative levels, to bring some of that community representation directly to those points. Another suggested function would be annual reporting. We could work to form some ideas of what that annual report might look like and what it might include, and to make sure that that report is widely available through multiple means of communication. The next slide, please. So I just took a little snippet out of the actual Senate bill here. And it's, you know, like all Senate bills, has a lot of content in it. If the red highlights here are 3 specific points where it talks about how you might set district goals. And they're mentioning what I see as a strong impact on data-driven programs and data-driven goals. And so as we start into the strategic planning process, there are definitely some points within this bill that really point to having a robust data reporting and sort of analysis and digestion of that, and making that a useful tool for us as we move forward and looking at equity in the district. Ready for the next one, please. So here's just a link to our current equity policy. I would expect that this probably needs to change quite a bit over the next year to include the requirements that we have. Some districts do have established, but again, we don't have very much information on sort of the day-to-day functioning or how that feedback loop is working between that advisory committee and the superintendent or the school district itself. The next slide shows just a quick representation of how, maybe in the simplest term, you know, you can have a one-page poster that sort of fits equity into everyday decisions, both in curriculum, other decisions within individual buildings. But this is an example from Beaverton School District, and it gives a couple of quick questions that helps to put people's eyes on how does this decision impact equity across those who are represented by the decision. So the next slide. What's next for us? We need to start working on establishing a policy to form the advisory group, and looking at who might be initial members within that advisory group and how we want that to function. Really looking at revising district metrics to allow a deeper look at our community and student achievement outcomes. And I think as we work through the strategic planning process, this will integrate really nicely if we can keep this sort of in the back of our mind as we go through that process. It's a great chance to align the district goals with some of the suggestions and directives for that Senate Bill 732. The next slide just has a snapshot of what we usually see on the state report card. So down the left side, you'll see some of the demographics that they're broken out that we usually see. And, you know, there's a link here. And through working with Ginger and Bill, we've started to dig around in the metrics a lot, but we have not made as much progress that I'm ready to report that quite yet. But we do see here is what we usually see on our student report card. But if you can go to the next slide down, please. There's a whole huge database available through ODE that also goes into a whole bunch of other demographics listed on the right side here, all the way from all students down the list. Some of those demographics I didn't readily find available on our individual report card, but the data exists at ODE already. And so it might be worth poking around to see which of those areas we can have better eyeballs on to track and to if there are ways that we can ask for specific sets of data and start to correlate and analyze those into things that we want to look for. I think the data definitely exists and we have the tools within ODE and within the district to be able to do some of that. So this would be a great time to start to look at some of those other metrics that we want to look at moving forward. And then the last slide, I think today. So we want to continue looking creatively at the available metrics, either pulling down those reports ourselves or asking for sort of correlated reports through ODE resources to see what might be a really good look for us so that we can tailor the metrics that we get. We don't just rely on the annual school report card, right? It's maybe not the exact look that we need for our district. So if we can identify that, then that would be ideal. We need to draft policy and we should look for a draft policy from OSBA on establishing that equity advisory group. Again, continue to identify members of the community, staff, and students who might serve on that advisory group starting once we have the policy in place. And then most importantly is integrate the district strategic planning so that we can allocate money for the key projects that we need. So this has been like a real 10,000 foot sort of overview. I was hoping that we could give you enough resources so that you could start to look around and think about what you would like to see on the district strategic plan. And then of course, I'm happy to answer questions now or offline later about any of these resources too. So. And thank you to Ginger and Bill for helping me walk through all of this. They know where all of the data exists everywhere. So it's very helpful.
Thanks for that report, Christy. Really appreciate it. Does anybody have questions for her that they wanted to present now? Otherwise, she also offered to make those, be able to answer those offline too.
Sure, this is Richard. I just had one quick question.
Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
Is it envisioned that this would be an advisory group to the school board, or this would be advisory to some other body?
Yeah, I think the Senate bill language is such that it's an advisory group to both the school board and then the superintendent as well. I think there's maybe flexibility on how we implement that, but that's sort of the way that it's envisioned is what I see. Would you guys agree, Ginger and Bill?
Advisory to the board at its face, but it advises can be used to advise buildings and administration at the same time, but its primary purpose is to advise the board.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. That was my question as well too. Anybody else have questions? Hearing none, we will move on. Again, thanks, Christy. I know you've got a lot of work in and many hours ahead probably. And obviously we've got some work on policy to put that equity advisory committee into place. So yeah, very much appreciate you taking the lead on this. So moving on to acknowledgement of donations and gifts. We have two this month. Pam Meekum for $200 for contributions for school supplies, and the Francis Family Trust for $100 contribution to the general fund. Much appreciate those. The district really does benefit from those types of donations. They directly impact our students for sure. So moving on to item 3, superintendent report. If you're ready, Ginger, I guess I will turn it over to you. And you're still muted.
All right, well, a couple of things on the agenda. All right, strategic planning coming up. We will move that to a virtual meeting as well. And the next meeting is about planning for focus groups. I want to announce that there's a budget committee position open. So please look for more information about that. Linda is not on the meeting tonight, but we'll have more information at the work session on the 24th. And I can't see the other item there. Oh yeah, self-evaluation. I'm going to start that process, though it's a really challenging time to do that because there's so much going on. But I know we need to talk about what happened today to give people an understanding of what we went through as a result of the absences that are starting to occur. When I arrived at school today, I spent some time with the nurse and found out at the middle school there were 27 positive cases that were being processed. And in those 27 positive cases, 120 students had been exposed. Hang on. Hang on, timeout. Meanwhile, in my kitchen, like I was saying, 120 students had been exposed, and this information is all being processed by the staff at the middle school, who's also trying to run the middle school. There were 126 students absent and 9 staff. The food services team was impacted, as well as special education, and it came to that tipping point where you say it's not safe to keep the school open and try to run because everyone is stretched so thin. So also today, there were a total of 29 absences for staff. 12 of them were unfilled, and staff were busy working in different buildings trying to help cover different activities so that school could be as normal as possible. When we calculated the percentage of students absent at the elementary, at the primary, 23%, at the intermediate, there was 14% students absent. At the middle school, there were 31% of the students were absent. And at the high school, it was only 9%. So it was clear that there was a problem at the middle school with exposures and exposure spreading within the school community. So we made the very disheartening decision that for the safety of all students involved, to give them an opportunity to, for the ones that had been exposed and told that they had to quarantine, and the ones that were exposed as a result of being in class with the students who had tested positive, that 10 days would be a good time frame. I consulted with Agnes, who was consulting with the local health authority about that decision, and we don't feel that the elementary will need to do that, or we don't feel that the high school will need to do that, but it was clear that we needed to do something at the middle school. So that was how we came to that conclusion. And we hope to bring students back as soon as possible. I think one of the questions that was raised earlier was about the transition time that teachers need to be able to move to short-term distance learning. So they are doing that. This is also a time for technology to be issued and for systems to be put in place to provide meals for families, to make sure that hotspots are available for those people that need them, and for things to be put in place so that teachers can be able to provide instruction every day for students while teaching from their own homes. I think that pretty much answers the questions for now. A lot of the details will come out tomorrow for the families and the students as the teachers are getting things set up and communicating with families.
Any other questions? I'm sorry.
It's Crystal. I do have one if another school board doesn't have one, another school board member.
Can we please ask attendees to mute if they're not speaking, please?
So my question is, we had allocated extra time within our contracted days already to prepare for something like this, specifically the 3rd. We took as a curriculum additional workday. Christy and I had talked about this several board meetings ago.
Mhm.
Why wasn't that prepared ahead of time? So now that we have 2 more days where kids are losing any contact, and will we be making these up in the snow days at the end of the year?
I don't know that we'll need to make up time. Oh, sorry, my video was off. I don't know that we'll need to make up time. We'll have to calculate instructional hours. But I do know that the 3rd was used to provide the training that was missing, particularly related to Canvas, which will be the platform that teachers will be making sure that they have everything up and ready for the kids. The transition days from one learning model to the next were not connected to that particular, that was a request for additional professional development. So this is what the teachers have asked for, and it seems reasonable to be able to allow them to set that up, given that there are so many things that they are struggling with right now, being short-staffed, some of them being impacted by having to quarantine or isolate themselves, and then others trying to support teachers who are new to the district and setting this up that have never done this before. And it seemed like it was a reasonable request.
And so can we expect to have to do this every time, or when we try to go back to in-person where we'll lose days?
Are you asking if
Or
every
we
time?
have 2 days transition back to in-person?
No, we won't have 2 days back. It may take a day to make sure that everything's in place for kids to return, but it won't take 2. That's not what teachers have asked for.
Go ahead, Christy. I see your hand up.
Okay, thanks. Were you done, Crystal? Or
Yes,
maybe.
sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess I would like to follow up on that. I think what Crystal was asking about a little bit, is your understanding now, Ginger, that the staff are trained so that moving forward on this, everybody is up to speed and we should finally have our plans in place should we need to do this again? Because my understanding was this was sort of top priority for professional development back in September when we first started school. So I would have assumed that it was already done.
I believe sections of the training were done, but as always, there's always more issues that arise and additional trainings that need to be done that you hadn't planned for. I believe Sherry's intent is to make sure that the time is used well, as she's been working with the teachers about what their needs were relative to making the transition. We know that getting kids back in person is the most important thing, and keeping the connection while they're gone is important as well. But we really want this to be as short term as possible. We want it to be impactful, and we also want the kids back. So we hope that.
I understand. I mean, plans are very,
Mhm.
very rapidly changing on all of this. I just want to make sure that if there are other opportunities for professional development to fill in those gaps between now and whenever, that training for the staff is the first priority. So that the kids can continue to learn. They have lost so much time learning over the
Mhm.
last 2 years. And I have I guess I have a point of order right now to Glenn. I'm not really sure what's happening on the chat. Is this?
That's a very good question, and one of a lot of concern for me at this point.
Okay, can we figure that out maybe?
Yeah, I'm going to suggest that we recess.
Okay.
If you find that might be a good thing to do, so we can clear things up.
Okay.
Think,
Um,
Sorry, this is Diane. I'm not sure how the public got the Zoom link, so someone must have sent it to them
We can trace that later.
and allowed them in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So in the interim, is there going to be a new Zoom link sent out?
Let's recess and we'll have a quick conversation. I'll
Okay.
get some consultation. Okay.
Okay. All right, so let's recess for,
Yeah.
It is 6:58. Let's recess for about 10 minutes then.
Okay. And everyone should log out.